Good evening. Hi, guys. Hope you're doing well. It's Wednesday, you're partway through the week. Today, we have an interesting thing. We have a guest with us today. This guest is, we covered on Friday the issues regarding home distillation of alcohol and why and how a judge in Texas was able to put together a nationwide injunction. Remember, guys, there's a stay on that till the DOJ decides, and I'm not the DOJ, but the Treasury decides what they're going to do. But for right now, pretty impressive how they came to that conclusion. I'm sure you guys remember Floodbusters and I were going through it. Well, I was contacted since then by the attorney who argued and led that case, and he is Devin Watkins. He is from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. If you guys don't know what that is a Libertarian, I would say, think tank, but they also do a lot of legal work. So they don't just sit there and say, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did have government?" No, they're very much about protecting small business, increasing competitiveness, limiting government intrusion. And Devin is one of their attorneys. He has worked at the Cato Institute. He has been involved and argued in front of the Supreme Court. In fact, he did a case that came out this term that we'll talk about as we get to it. He's been he's been on with the Federal Society, National Review, all over the place. He holds his Juris Doctor from George Mason University, and prior to being an attorney, he was a software developer for Intel and WebMD. So he's part of the reason why when you start panicking, you find out it's always cancer. But anyways, with that said, here is Devin. Thank you for being here, Devin.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I might just add one correction.
Yes.
I've been a part of several Supreme Court cases, but I haven't actually argued the case.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apology. So he's been part of them, guys. Did not argue, but he was part of them. So, it was me, not me. Okay, yeah. No, I'm not muted, guys. I was wondering what you guys were doing here. So, welcome. And yes, you... I guess, first of all, congratulations on your case.
Thank you.
There in Texas. Have you heard from the government? Are they seeking review on the Fifth Circuit?
They have not yet filed for any review yet. I expect they're going to take another week that they have before they seek a stay, likely, into the Fifth Circuit.
Okay. And because I was wondering about that, because there are times where I know, for example, with the SEC, when they lost their case against Ripple, I think it was back last fall, and the court determined that they weren't a security anymore. The SEC didn't appeal that up to the Second Circuit because I think they were worried about, well, if we get shellacked by the Second Circuit, then that actually creates precedent all over the country. And I didn't know if in this situation they're like, we'll let these guys get away with it and just hope nobody not make any big waves about it. I was wondering if that's something they may do.
Given we have a nationwide association that people can join, my guess is that they're going to appeal this decision.
So, and that was the other thing I wanted to ask to clarify. It's not just the people in the group at the time of the suit, but it's anybody who joins the group, right?
The opinion was not that clear on that fact.
Okay.
At least my understanding is that anyone that joins the group would fall within the injunction once the government knows that you're a member of the group. But that's just my understanding. That is what we argued to the judge.
Okay. Because I was thinking about joining myself at this point, just so I could say I did it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, guys, that is actually, now we know that answer. The answer is maybe. So don't just immediately send in your dues and go buy a still. It's not 100% clear how this actually applies right now. So be very careful. That's all I can...
Even if you were a member and even if the injunction does apply to you, you still have to register your still with the government. You still have to get permits before you can start distilling.
Yes.
So that is very critical. This is just going to ensure that the government will actually issue these permits and not just summarily ignore the permit requests.
Yes. Yes, and that is the other thing, that there's a lengthy process involved in that. It's not easy. And also, for example, as the judge pointed out, if you live in New Jersey, you have to register with your state. And I'm assuming in most states, you are going to have to register them anyway.
Yes, there are a lot of states that have permit requirements in addition to the federal government, and our case has absolutely nothing to do with those state requirements.
Yes. And I was really surprised by that in New Jersey. You could do that considering most everything else in New Jersey is illegal. So I was very surprised. All right. So I guess, Devin, I'll start off with, I know part of the reason why the court eventually, once we got into the depth of the case, it actually made sense how the court was able to do what it did. I know one of the arguments the court cited was that alcohol is less regulated comprehensively than drugs and than narcotics. And was that something you guys were aware of too, and part of your arguments?
Yes, this was a core piece of our Commerce Clause argument. Generally, what happens with these power cases is that you need to defeat the enumerated power itself, and then you need to defeat the government's authority under the necessary and proper clause, that what they're doing would be helpful to the enumerated power, even if it doesn't directly have the power to do that through the enumerated powers. And it's key to the Commerce Clause argument that there is no interstate regulation that would be helped by this at-home ban. If there was, this would be legal under RAGE. You could try to overturn RAGE, but as long as the RAGE is on the books, if it was something that made some interstate regulation work, then the federal government could ban the at-home distilling of distilled spirits. But there is no regulation like that on the books, and so there's nothing the government could point to. In the government's briefing, the best it could point to was the fact that there was these taxes on distilled spirits. Obviously, there is taxes on distilled spirits, but that's not a Commerce Clause power.
Yes, and that was the interesting reading this, because if you had asked me the week before, if somebody had come to me and said, "Hey, can I run a still and make my own alcohol?" I would have told them no, and I didn't know I wouldn't know exactly why it's against the law, but it was just one of those things that it seems like we've all heard and we all know, but what's the actual law that prohibits that? And it's mainly because the government doesn't want people running around and selling it and not getting taxes with it. But it's interesting what you guys argued. There really isn't an effect. It's not really a proper prohibition on personal distillation. I thought that was very interesting, that it's something it's decided we all thought was a law, but it's actually not really.
Well, on personal distilling personally, there isn't actually a law against that, as long as you don't do it at your home or in any property kind of connected to your home or in your yard. As long as you have some other property, you can get a permit to distill.
Yes.
But what we're looking to do is someone that has, say, a shed in their backyard and wants to...
I forgot to clarify that part. My apology. At home, yes.
If a person owns just their home and the property on their home, which is very common for most people, and this law would effectively prevent them from distilling at all, because they have no place to do that distilling. And that's why it is important to allow some people to distill at home.
Yes, and I should have been a little more concise with that, but yes, it's the idea of, well, why can't you? And the government says, well, they're not worried about you. They cite protecting revenue, not necessarily safety. Although you would think, well, yes, back in whenever, people were probably using whatever they could find to make a still, and I'm sure stills did blow up.
Well, but I think some of this may have been safety related, as you're talking about, but that's actually not a power the federal government can use to justify it. State governments can, but not the federal government. And
exactly, that's a state power for the police power and the health and safety. So it's very interesting that they tried. I'm assuming, and I don't know if they mentioned that during your arguments and any deliberate or anything you guys had to argue in front of the court. But that I could assume that's why they said that, having it in your house, because otherwise there's no real effect whether I do it in a warehouse, I do it out in the woods, or I do it in my garage. That doesn't affect the government's ability to tax it. It doesn't affect their revenue regardless of where I do it.
That's our point of view. It doesn't affect the revenue regardless of where you do it. There's plenty of at-home businesses out there that provide taxes to the government all the time. And there's no reason to believe that a person could not provide taxes for the distilling that occurs at home as well.
Yes, and I didn't know when you got into this. Did you know at the time? Did you have to learn the limits as far as the federal government's regulations on alcohol, or did you kind of already know some of this before you got into it, just out of curiosity?
Many years ago, I did a survey of all the state requirements for alcohol. I was an intern at the Institute for Justice at the time, but federal limits on alcohol production was not something I was very familiar with. So I've had to familiarize myself quite a bit since I started this case.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure it was really neat learning just what exactly, because I was reading along that. I was actually learning quite a bit. And I thought it was interesting that, yes, because the federal government doesn't tell these distilleries how much they make, and it's very funny when you read about the Agricultural Act. It's like, wow, that sounds like a command economy. And yes, given what was going on in the 1930s,
it's exactly what it is.
That was the hot new thing.
Yeah. And it was a disaster, which is why we don't have it today.
Yes. It was, and it's only 5 years at a time. But I was also very surprised because I started reading this and I kept on saying, guys, I don't understand how we're going to get around Wickard, because basically with Wickard, everything is interstate commerce. And and yes, it was how the court got to this. I was actually really impressed. He threaded the needle very, very, very nicely through that.
Yeah, he adopted our argument effectively on that point. So I'm very happy that he did so. But we actually designed this case to specifically comply with RACH. It was in reading RACH and the specific qualifications that RACH has that gave me the idea to kind of start this litigation.
And guys, he's talking about Gonzalez v. RACH, and that was a 2005 case, and it built upon California allowing homegrown medical marijuana, but RACH is built upon ultimately going back through to Wickard, and that's where, remember, guys, we talked about this before. By not being involved in commerce, you are commerce, and you're affecting it that way. Which that's the very simplified version of it, but yes, it's mind blowing when somebody explains it to you that way. And the other thing I was actually really it makes sense the way the judge addressed this, and I know it's probably part of your arguments as well. You can't simply go back and amend those statutes to say regarding interstate commerce or inserting references to taxation power.
They could do some of those things if they tried. They could say, we're banning you from distilling at home with a distill that was sold in interstate commerce.
Yes.
That gives them a hook. But what people are just going to do is create stills within the state, and then they don't, and then it isn't sold in interstate commerce, so it doesn't matter.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that. Do you think that would survive the review if they had said, if they include, you can't use a still manufactured in interstate commerce or sold in interstate commerce?
It might sometimes, but again, that becomes fact dependent. Was this still in particular sold in interstate commerce? And we would just file the same lawsuit, but make a declaration that we'll only use stills that were made within the state that we are doing it, and then they're back in the same position they were before.
Well, and I think so, but I guess I worry about. So I think he cited the Paxton case, but I also know other states have done this where people take suppressors for firearms, and they'll say, "Oh, it's entirely made within our state, therefore it's not regulated under the National Firearms Act." And so far, no court has been willing to go along with that and say, "Well, you got us there." They always make an exception, but I think. That would be. I think that would be. I'd like to. I would hope the court would agree that you guys have a way around it then.
So I don't know exactly what the regulations are around silencers. I suspect that the government is asserting a very broad authority to regulate the interstate sale of silencers.
They do.
Trying to support that interstate regulation of silencers by some kind of local prohibition. This is very similar to what was done in RACH. The key distinction here is there is no interstate regulation that's being supported by this at-home prohibition.
And I guess the only other thing that would help too is thankfully that Congress is so deadlocked in such disarray that even if they had to fix this or could fix this issue, I don't think they could fix it right now if they wanted to.
Well, I mean, I think if a bill got to the floor, we wouldn't have at home a ban on distilling. The Hobby Distillers Association was working with lobbyists to try to change this in Congress. And I think they actually got a majority in Congress. The problem was at least from what I've been told, that the Senate Majority Leader from Kentucky had some Kentucky bourbon people come to him.
I'm sure he did.
And got him to block consideration of that on the floor. So I doubt there's the majority in Congress to actually enact such a prohibition. In fact, there's probably a majority going the other way if there was ever an actual vote on it.
That gives me confidence, because I assumed a lot of Congress would say, "Wait, we're going to lose tax revenue," and they would say, even if it's wrong, we will lose tax revenue because people won't buy alcohol.
No, you're going to get more tax revenue because anyone that distills at home is going to be providing taxes.
Yes, but I think they would say that, and they, but through their mind they would say, the liquor industry and the buggy whips will go out of business.
Yes, there may be members of the liquor industry that are already producing these distilled beverages that may not like people being able to avoid buying their products by distilling at home.
Yes. Were you guys talking about, guys? Yes, wine brewing, and we talked about in the decision, wine brewing and beer brewing is legal. It's been legal actually for a very long time, relatively speaking. But yeah, some states do make it illegal. I guess, apparently don't try to Mississippi or Alabama.
There's some places, some counties that are dry where they don't allow alcohol.
That too, as well, yes. So be very careful about where you are. Porcelain Thunder actually has a question. What does manufactured actually mean? Final assembly by the customer, like IKEA, would that be considered manufactured?
So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
I think he meant like with the still. If the still was manufactured as part of interstate commerce.
Well, Congress would have to define what that word meant. Yes. And if they didn't define it, it would be up to the judge to define what he thinks that the public would have understood that term to mean.
Yes.
So it's possible it could be the final assembly. It could be like the majority of pieces. There's a lot of different definitions of manufactured in a variety of different statutes today.
Yeah, and I was about to say, yes, from statute to statute, topic to topic, manufactured is different per item. So what might count as manufactured for a still is going to be different than manufactured for, computer
automobiles,
parts.
I think, are something like 80% or something. There's some percentage of the vehicle that has to be from that location.
Yes. And sorry, KJ just sent in. So if we join the Hobby Distillers Association, you're in Ohio, you could combine making alcohol and using warning shots. That there's a case here that Ohio just illegal. They overturned a guy's conviction because they did determine his use of warning shots were legal. So that's why they're making that joke. I still don't recommend the warning shots, guys. That guy got very lucky.
Yeah,
please don't do it.
I would usually strongly suggest not firing your gun if you don't have to.
Well, that too, yes. Yes.
A friend of mine that I knew out in Oregon was at a BLM rally and had a firearm concealed on him, but some of the people at the rally saw it. They were like, "Oh, he's got a gun." They started chasing after him. He ran away. At one point, he felt he couldn't run any longer. He pulled out the gun, scanned the crowd with the gun. They backed off. He put it away. He left. And for doing that, he got charged with 10 counts of menacing and convicted.
I think was it caught on video? Because I think I've seen this guy.
Yes, and Michael Strickland. He was a friend of mine back in Oregon when I lived there.
Okay, I remember the name. Yes, I remember that guy. Yes. Yeah, he was getting chased by all the Antifa people, and I don't blame him for doing the way he did it.
Be very careful with use of firearms.
Yes, but that was a rough one because they weren't going to leave him alone. They were not going to leave him alone. And also, you mentioned, Devin, you had a case just in front of the Supreme Court recently that you were involved with that got decided this term, and that's one I have not covered yet, but it does cover some interesting topics. You mind?
Sure. So this is more of the United States. It's concerning the 16th Amendment and what it means to have income under the 16th Amendment. This is important because income under the 16th Amendment is an exception to the direct tax clause. The direct tax clause says when government taxes you personally, for instance, $100 for every person has to pay a tax, or they tax your land. Every person has to pay $10 per square foot of your land, or something like that, or they tax your property. Then the government, the default rule is the government has to apportion that tax, which means that every state has to raise the same amount of money per person in that state. So rich states or poor states have to pay the same amount of total taxes based on the number of people in that state. This was designed to ensure that states could not kind of gang up on other states where we're going to take all of your property and we're going to distribute it to ourselves. The income tax was an exception to that because of a decision called Pollock that said that income off of land, like rents to land, was a direct tax because it was effectively taxing the land and therefore unconstitutional unless it was apportioned. The 16th Amendment kind of reversed that by saying there's an exception for income taxes. These taxes, although they might be direct, do not have to be apportioned. And so our case concerned about what the meaning of income was. We argued that the taxpayer has to receive money or the equivalent of receiving money to have income and therefore be taxed on it. The government claimed that if you own a corporation and the corporation has income, that can be attributed to its shareholders. Sadly, we lost that one. The Supreme Court said, regardless of whether there's a requirement of realization or a requirement that you have received money, Congress has the power to assign the income of a corporation to its shareholders.
Yes. And guys, in Moore, the Moore is invested in an American-controlled foreign company. And from over the course of 11 years, it generated a lot of income, but it never distributed the income to its American shareholders.
Yeah.
So the government still decided, hey, guess what? You owe us. And they had to owe $14,000, even though they never received a dime of it.
Yeah.
And they were forced to pay the tax.
Yep. Sadly, we lost that one. I really wish it had gone the other way. It has a lot of implications also for wealth taxes. But at the moment, that issue is still undecided because they did not reach the question of realization, which is the question we asked the court to decide. They left that undecided so that they can decide in the future whether wealth taxes require apportionment or not. We did convince 4 of the Supreme Court justices that realization is a constitutional requirement, but sadly, the Chief Justice Roberts and Kavanaugh decided that they would join the liberals in not answering that question.
And I think I think it's been quiet right now, but I remember for a while there was a push, or at least there was a lot of discussion about with the capital gains tax, and that you'd be taxed on the capital gains before you realize them, and just the idea.
That is a proposal that's been made by the President of the United States, and to date it hasn't been enacted. If it did get enacted, this issue would be raised again, I'm sure, in response.
Yes, very much so. And guys, what we're talking about with realizing the gains in that regard. So, for example, you own Apple stock, and Apple stock, just takes off to the moon. I mean, it's already doing well, but whatever stock you want.
Microsoft is interesting because Microsoft has reinvested a lot of its profits and not distributed those profits. Amazon as well, for many years, did not issue a dividend, reinvested all of its profits. And so the argument is that the government could go tax its current shareholders on those realized dividends.
Yes, and it's not even a situation of they're holding the money and not paying you. They literally turned around and spent the money. The money's already gone. And that you would be forced to pay a tax on the value of something you have never fully realized.
In some ways, this case was even more egregious because this was a 30-year retroactive tax. And one of the things we argued in the courts below was that violated the due process clause to go and tax current day shareholders on what the company did 30 years ago. But sadly, we lost on that one in the lower courts as well,
Mhm.
and we did not seek cert on that question.
I don't recall seeing it when I was reading it, but this is a 30-year back tax that they ended up paying on.
Yes, a 30-year
Oof.
retroactive tax on all the profits that had not been distributed.
Oh, wow. That would sting quite a bit. That would sting quite a bit.
Yeah.
I can't that makes people do a lot of things that don't end well. I'll leave it at that. A lot of people do things I don't condone them, but I fully understand them at that regard. So aside from, this is, guys, this once again, this sounds like tax. I know we were covering on a Friday. Yeah, taxes seem kind of boring and dry, but there is, the power of the purse, the government's ability to levy taxes is super critical. And we talked about on Monday the ability of the Congress to levy taxes, as part of the funding that Special Counsel Smith allegedly did not have access to.
Yeah.
So it's
Judge Cannon's opinion was a very interesting opinion.
it was very interesting to me too, reading it, that she, did the appointments issue. I understand that one, but I do think that it's interesting with the appropriations clause. How the DOJ was allowing Smith to, he was doing it through them, but it was very, very interesting. And I really wonder how that's going to hold up under, because certainly they're not going to let this go.
No, they're not. They're obviously appealing.
Yeah.
I think the 11th Circuit, I don't know which way the 11th Circuit will go. We'll have to see on that. I think if this ever hits the Supreme Court, I think that he might be out of luck on that one. I think the proper interpretation is that he was not properly appointed, that Congress did not create this office, and that he is using the appropriation that was set up originally for the independent counsel statute that is now expired.
Yes. And that part I do agree with, though, because he does, and I do think her logic is sound in the regards. He's got all the benefits and none of the drawbacks in his position, which when she lays them all out in that regard, it is very glaring that he has all this authority and he's not really accountable to anyone.
And this is very easy to fix for the government. They can just assign the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida and tell him to go bring the case, and he can bring the case. There's no one that disputes his authority to bring the case.
Yes, and that was the basic point. Jack Smith is acting as a U.S. attorney everywhere he goes. Well, we already have U.S. attorneys. Why don't we use the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia to take the one case?
Well, that one actually isn't likely to have as much of a problem. There's a precedent in the D.C. Circuit that basically says all of this is kosher.
Okay.
Judge Cannon is not in the D.C. Circuit, so that is only persuasive authority for her, and she did not find it persuasive.
Now, has the parts of the D.C. Circuit, has that just never gone up to the Supreme Court, or?
Yeah, it's been decided by the D.C. Circuit, but it's never gotten to the Supreme Court. I would not be surprised if it gets to the Supreme Court this time, especially if the 11th Circuit affirms.
Okay. A helping hound says taxes aren't boring anymore. I received a troubling letter saying they could take property by special assessments. It's not going over well. Yeah, no, taxes sound boring until you got to deal with them, and sometimes you get surprised by them.
Yeah, the government has a lot of power under the tax power. In this case, for instance, we had to file taxes and pay all the money that the government said that we owed, and then file a lawsuit for a refund for the money we've already paid.
Yes. And yeah, it was interesting that it came out of actually it shouldn't be, because it came out of the Ninth Circuit. I never would imagine the Ninth Circuit's going to say, yes, you don't have to pay these taxes. I mean, for them to.
In some ways, the Ninth Circuit case was very good for us.
Was?
Although it was about as contrary as you can get to our opinion. So they said that there was no realization requirement at all under the Constitution. And they reached that question very explicitly. I think that's the reason in some ways the Supreme Court felt it had to take up this case, because the Ninth Circuit decision was just so wrong.
Well, that's, I guess, thank God for the Ninth Circuit to an extent. And for those of you foreign, I know I have a couple people here who watch are not from America. Some of this may seem weird to you because, yes, you can go make money in other countries overseas and do money through other foreign entities, and you don't pay taxes in your home country. What you make, you pay taxes where you make them. America, I think America and is it France? Is it France maybe where they tax U.S. citizens who make money overseas?
I don't know.
Okay. The United States definitely does. And if you're a U.S. citizen and you have to you are supposed to file tax returns even if you don't live in the United States anymore.
That is quite the case. Yes.
Yes, we are unique among most of the world. So.
We'll see if one day they decide you only have to file taxes if you have taxes due owed to the federal government in that way. But
yes.
Right now, there's still a lot of taxes that have to be filed.
Yes, and well, I've routinely, as much as I'd like to say, I think a court would agree with that. Unless you've had 9 Justice Thomases on the court, I don't think you're going to get that kind of result.
Probably not right now, but maybe one.
I hope so. But I will say there have been times where I've been thoroughly impressed in the past year with some of the arguments the court has made and supported and agreed with.
I mean, Overreach was amazing. Jarchese was amazing. There's been some really great decisions in the last few weeks.
Yes.
There's also been some disappointments, but.
Now, were you surprised by Libertarian going the way it went?
No. In fact, we had an amicus request for someone on the issue concerning Chevron and a specific aspect of Chevron. And we had made the decision a while ago that we weren't going to file an amicus brief because it wasn't worth our time. We did not think that this area of law would continue to exist anymore after Libertarian.
Really?
That was maybe 6 months before Libertarian was decided.
And guys, if you don't remember, Libertarian is the Chevron killer case. And if you guys don't know what Libertarian was about, ultimately, it was really ridiculous. And I think this is an example of the amount of people. I'm sure, Devin, you see this law Twitter and the esteemed legal scholars out there who were very upset that this was destroying skill and expertise. And you would ask them, what expertise is required by having babysitters sit on a boat and making the fishermen pay for that babysitter? Because, guys, that's what Libertarian was all about. The Fish and Wildlife Service, you had to pay for a federal monitor to sit on your boat.
Really,
that's all it did.
Really, what this was, it was a power grab by the agency when Congress refused to appropriate money to the agency to do this. They wanted to do it, and so rather than getting the money from Congress, they forced everyone else to pay for their the things they wanted to do.
Yes, and literally the agency said, "This is a rule. You have to have the monitor on your boat." Okay. Oh, you also have to pay for him. And how much is that? $700 a day. And all the guy does is make sure you follow fishing regulations.
Which in many cases entirely eliminates the profit of the company.
Yeah, a lot of people had to quit. They couldn't keep doing it.
Yeah.
So that's one where, yes, I agree. The agencies got greedy and people were like, oh, the expertise. There was no expertise involved in that. And the agencies, because they got greedy and, bad facts make bad law, except, when you're the government, doing overreach like this leads to bad outcomes. And, these were good facts for us and that made good law. So obviously for them it's bad, but I do like that. And I think it's fine. I think the government shouldn't just be allowed to say, well, because we're the government, this is a good reason. They should have to come in. You've got your experts. Show us why your experts are right.
Absolutely. Sadly, even after Libertarian, there's still a lot of deference given to the government on factual issues.
Yes.
And I wish there was some way we could get to more of a jury, even in a preliminary hearing challenge on the facts. But right now, you can get to a jury, but you have to wait until an actual enforcement action before you get to a jury to actually decide the facts.
That would be interesting. It's almost like getting to a jury, even for Jarkisi, that was the jury's kind of like into the facts after you presented overall, but having a jury determine whether or not, just who's more credible to start with, is this law or is this rule any valid? That would be an interesting way of doing it. Just, having some, the government would hate that because I could see it every time.
I would love to see a jury. Like, let's say we had a large jury. We had a 50-person jury where one person was randomly chosen from every state. You represent the entire country that way, and you get the common people to decide what the facts really are. I would love to see that, but that would obviously require a pretty substantial change by Congress.
Yes, well, that would be, it would be a substantial change. That would be earth-shattering, I think, and I would love that because that would be the absolute death knell of the administrative state. To be fair, this is a massive knock. I think, appellate courts, I think have to be careful because the Supreme Court's already stated how hostile they are to Chevron at this point, that, as you're saying, courts seem to still be giving the deference even since this has happened. I think you'll start, hopefully the Supreme Court starts coming in and correcting these, whether it's through the spooky shadow docket that people get upset about, or just when they deny actions, or they they do it without any further briefing. So I'm hoping the court does that. But yeah, I didn't realize courts were still saying, well, wink, wink, we still trust the government. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Really. Oh, I guess Devin had, he must have froze up, I think, because I didn't see him moving there. Or he didn't, or he got bored by us, guys. I'm not sure. You can't do that. Nobody would listen to Utah. Yes. And all these agencies exist to make money for the government without calling it taxes. Sure. But in Loper Bright, guys, this wasn't about making money. The Fish and Maritime Service, they wanted these monitors, the babysitters, to hang out. And this was enforcement. This was regulatory action. This wasn't meant to generate revenue. And they had to pay $700 a day for these people to sit on the boat. And that's all they did. They didn't help. They didn't do anything. They weren't part of the crew. But you had to pay for these people. And it wasn't meant to generate money. I'm not sure. I don't know if Devin dropped out. I'm sure he'll come back in if he can. Did you guys scare him off? Damn it, chat. You did it. I'm not sure. I'm glad he was here, though. It was nice filling in on a lot of things, especially like for more. We hadn't really got to that one yet. But I do think it helps you guys understand there is a lot of, like I said, I'm sure on Friday a lot of you thought, oh my God, this is so dry and so boring. But there's so much power in attacking these matters. And if you can get, the taxation power, the power to tax, you can take care of that. And the government, you don't even have to worry about fighting the rest of it. It's done. It's dead. $700 for a boat anchor, $700 a day for that. A guy who's on your boat, who doesn't do anything, doesn't help, and is there to tattle on you, is there to report you to the government. So yes. Benjamin Lewis says they were having to pay an extra person's salary. Yeah. And not to mention there's a problem of trying to smoke weed with the NOAA on the boat. I don't think the federal monitors were smoking weed on the boat. Devin's back. Yeah. Hi, Devin.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Computer just crashed, so it took me a minute to reset everything, get back in here.
That's all right. You guys are in DC, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you got that quality DC internet being supervised by the NSA. So are there some other cases you guys currently have in the pipeline you're working on?
We just filed a new lawsuit against the Department of Energy, arguing that Department of Energy lacks the authority to issue water efficiency rules for dishwashers and clothes washers. The statute is pretty clear in my opinion. And in fact, the Fifth Circuit has already said they don't have this authority. And then despite the Fifth Circuit saying that, they decided to go do it anyway. So we've now asked for an injunction ordering them to stop.
Mm. And with this one, are you guys looking for like a nationwide injunction? I'm assuming that makes the most sense.
In a way. So we have a client that would like to buy a dishwasher. And so to be able to effectively allow him to be able to buy dishwashers from whatever manufacturer he wants, it does require what would be equivalent of a nationwide injunction.
Yeah. And I guess that's a question I have for you too, because I'm curious to know your opinion. I know in the height of Trump's administration, there was, and I'm sure you've heard the meme of Hawaii judge was always, Hawaii judge stops this, Hawaii judge stops that. There were nationwide injunctions on everything. Yeah. And Clarence Thomas had made a statement like, you guys really should stop doing this. This is not going to end well. We don't like this.
Yeah.
Our job is nationwide. Your job is your little piece of the pie.
Well, no, it's a little bit more than that. So under the traditional rules of equity, injunctions are supposed to be limited to remedy the harms to the parties. So if there's a way to do that such that the injunction only applies to the parties, that is always the way it should be done. That is not always possible to do. This is one example where there's no way we can say, you can sell to this person, but no one else. It doesn't quite work like that because it has to be these products have to be available on the market for him to be able to buy them. And so because of the theory of standing we have and how he's been injured, the only option to remedy those harms is a nationwide injunction. But the default always has to be the smallest injunction that would be possible to remedy all of the harms of the plaintiff. That's why in our distilling case, we're only asking that it apply to the parties in the case.
Yes. And that is the members of the association and not for everyone.
Yes, because the association itself is a party.
Yes. And it's because of that limited harm, because the injunction is a step courts would rather avoid doing. Is there another way we can get around it? But as we see, though, courts over the past couple of years have really taken a pleasure in saying, well, it's going to affect everywhere. And I think a lot of that is...
So some of this has to do with the fact that traditionally at common law, there was a lot of possibility of getting damages. When something would harm you, the courts would generally remedy that by giving you damages after the fact for the harms that you have occurred. But to the extent the federal government blocks you from being able to get damages due to sovereign immunity and a variety of other things, the only thing available to the judge to remedy the harm is an injunction. So if the government wants to start allowing people to get post hoc monetary awards to remedy their harm, that would be a fine way to do it. But that's up to the government how it wants to handle that.
Well, I'm sure and I do think that's a very interesting proposition for the government. It's like, so do you want people to sue you for money? Do you want us to fritter away at the edges of sovereign immunity? I'm sure that they would. I'm sure it's going to be a tough choice. That'd be a Sophie's choice for them, I think, at the end of the day.
Very much so.
But I do think it's very interesting, though, seeing, especially with this case, because that's how I found out about your case is a couple of law Twitter people that I happen to follow just so I can see what they're talking about. They had the bottom of the opinion, and they were very concerned because this was a nationwide injunction and it's, Texas judge running amok. And then I read the actual order, and I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how else you could do it, but I think it's very funny. Those are the same people who, 3 years ago were running around screaming, hooray, we have nationwide injunctions going into effect. And, those ones, many of them were just politically motivated and absolutely ridiculous in what they were doing every time.
Yeah. And I am very happy we have the judge that we do, but it's not like we went judge shopping in this case. This is the place that the Hobby Distillers Association is headquartered. It's been headquartered there for a long time, long before this litigation started.
Okay.
So,
I was actually going to ask about that too, and yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting because that is a very frequent thing. People will judge shop guys at the federal level, even in district courts, and you judge shop, but there's also times where things, oh look, it ended up in front of the judge we wanted, hooray! And you're like, that even at the local level that happens. Oh, it ended up in front of Judge Bob. Oh, out of the other 30 judges in this courthouse, really, that's amazing how that happened.
well, I don't really have a problem with plaintiffs seeking to file in friendly forums that they think would be likely
Yes.
to be successful. I
Mhm.
do actually have a little bit of problem on the other side. When judges reach out to take specific cases,
Mhm.
I don't like that at all. It should
Yes.
not be up to the judge what cases they are assigned to them.
Well, and that's where I think because I haven't experienced it directly, but I worked with some people where when they said, "Oh," the clerk's like, "Oh, I'm doing the random judge assignment," and they click the button. I'm like, "Did you really click the button? Like, how did that really get to Judge Bob? How did it really get there?" I'm like, I have some hard doubt that it just happened to go in front of this judge who absolutely loves what the other party's trying to push forward. But I do agree. There's nothing wrong with trying to go to a county or a district or a state where you're going to be better off. That's fine. That's just the nature of how things are.
Yeah,
But
and if
yes,
Congress doesn't like that, they can change the venue rules.
yes.
It's really up to Congress to decide what they want the venue rules to be.
Hmm.
And I don't have problems with litigants that follow those venue rules precisely and advocate
Hmm.
for their clients and try to be as successful as they can.
Yes, yes. And Matt B's talking about Judge Benitez in Southern District of California. Yeah, but that was one where he already did it, and they just keep sending the cases to him. So
Yeah,
that's
there
not
are
necessarily him taking them.
some districts that have certain rules where if there are sufficiently similar cases, they will assign it to the previous judge, which got assigned to it. That's not as much of an issue, although I kind of
Hmm.
wish it was a little random assignment in some cases like that. But at least then it's relatively fair and even and
Hmm.
applied in a manner where the judge isn't taking positive action to reach out and decide a case.
Yes,
If
yes.
some of the judges that are like, I want, they let the clerks know that they want this kind of case to be assigned to them, and so that they can decide
Mhm.
it in a specific way, and the other judges don't care and they just let that happen. That doesn't seem very proper to me.
No, it doesn't. And I would also say, for something like Judge Benitez in the Southern District of California, it also makes sense. He's already kind of familiar with the issues. And this one, when it comes to the Second Amendment stuff, it gets a little, you know, a lot of judges understand, okay, felons can't own guns, and that's generally their understanding of the law, and that's generally good enough for them. So I do think in his situation it does help because he has that expertise. He already knows most of the players. He already understands the whole issue and all of California's problems. But yes, I do agree. Judges should not be allowed to reach out, and even if he's the only one that wants it, yes, I agree. That's still a problem because those judges should be, wanting whatever comes their way. I'm going to deal with it. Although judges love nothing more than dealing with civil cases. I can tell you that much.
Well, some of them actually prefer civil cases.
Yes.
Some of them avoid it like the plague. So.
Yeah. Well, the majority of them are not thrilled to have civil cases. But that said, though, there are times where there's some really amazing civil cases out there that, um, such as like yours and the things that happen there. But then there are also ones where it's just, I can't imagine having to be, how many mesothelioma cases do you really need to deal with in federal court?
There's a
Uh,
lot of cases out there because there's a lot of money at stake.
yes, yes. Oh, I agree. And Abel was actually, he brought up something I thought was interesting. I didn't know this. He's saying in California, you have to pay for a welding inspector to sit in his car as you're doing the work. And Abel, are you saying I get a welding inspector inspecting your welds as you're done, but he has to watch you do the welding? That seems a little. But hey, I guess it's not too big of a surprise for California.
That's not something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And who is this? Oh God, I thought. No, sorry, my lovely producer was telling me. I thought she said Biden died of COVID. No, he has COVID. Jeez, like I'm like, sorry, Devin, we're gonna have to switch gears real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, I just every once in a while the way she words things, I'm like, what? Okay, sorry, chat. No, Joe Biden's fine. He's still alive. There. So, and with the in addition to the energy regulations for
Mhm.
washing machines and dishwashers, are there any other cases you guys are currently working on dealing with?
Yes. We have a case in the DC Circuit. We're challenging the EPA's authority to issue fleet-wide auto emission rules. Under our interpretation of the statute, EPA can regulate the amount of emissions any individual car or group of cars emit, but they have to specify, a car cannot emit more than X amount of pollutants. This means that among the cars that are legal, EPA doesn't have the authority to advantage some cars over other cars, which is what they're effectively doing. They've set a standard below what a gas-powered car can produce in CO2 in an effort to force manufacturers to produce more electric vehicles on the market.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys were wondering, when he's talking about the fleet, so for example, Ford, it's not just their it's just not their sedans that he's talking about. The sedans have to have a certain output, or the trucks, and then the heavy duties, and then the commercial ones, and then the vans. He's saying every vehicle Ford makes over the course of a year, the output has to be at a certain level. And because of that, they have to make a ton of electric cars to make up for the gap.
Yes, and when EPA originally did this, they wrote in the Federal Register, "We don't think Congress had considered this, but we think we can do it anyway."
Oh, really? They said
Yes,
that. That's
it was in the 1980s. It was a very
oh,
different judicial atmosphere at the time. And the manufacturers had come to the Reagan administration and asked for flexibility in the enforcement of the statute. And the Reagan administration was happy to give it to them. But they did so by not actually following what the statute said, of course. And as long as the only people in it that were injured were the car companies, and they were the ones asking for this, it really wasn't an issue.
yes.
But now that the Biden administration has expanded it and caused harm to the fuel manufacturers outside of the auto industry, they have standing to challenge this.
Also, it's going to be the energy companies challenging. Okay.
Energy companies, and we have about a dozen states on board as well.
Oh, okay. Now, I do think it's interesting that you talk about it. Yes, in the 80s, the EPA says, well, we can do this. And, Chevron was the hot new thing at the point. So, yeah, of course. Why not? We could do whatever we want.
That was sadly at times the view of these agencies.
Yes. SB Sellers saying the Hilux is not coming to America anytime soon, guys. I know there's the idea that Toyota's going to bring that $10,000 truck or whatever it is. I have a concern that, yeah, they're going to be great. I don't know if you've seen those. People are saying, well, now Toyota could bring in all these trucks if Chevron gets destroyed. And I'm thinking that these, trucks they make for India and China, I'm assuming they're going to fail federal crash test safety regulation. So guys, even if they're allowed to come in, they're not going to be able to be sold, I bet. Just on normally, like it's not just the one part of it. Importing cars, there is actually a ton of things you have to do to make those valid. So it's not just the emissions anymore.
Yeah, sadly, that case has to be filed in the DC Circuit. And given the composition of the DC Circuit, I'm not very confident we will win there. But yes, I think that we have a very good chance of getting cert on that when we get to the Supreme Court.
Yes. So no, you're not going to be able to buy a Temu truck. Not now. Not for a while, at least. Bob is saying, why does the Hilux fail U.S. standards? I think it's because there's just regulations against the turbo diesels they import. And then it's a number of reasons, but yeah, you can't have them, guys. I'm sorry, you can't have the drive forever trucks. So, don't know what to tell you there. And where is that case? You mentioned the
We're at
dishwasher
DC
case.
Circuit right now. No,
Okay.
the dishwasher
Yes.
case is in Northern District of Texas.
Okay, so same place.
Not exactly the same place, before a different judge. We're out
Okay.
in Morello.
Okay. And then the car one is in the District of Columbia. You said DC Circuit?
Because the Clean Air Act requires that all of the cases with nationwide impact be filed in the DC Circuit.
And guys, that's an interesting thing there. There are times, depending on when you file suit against the government, you don't start at the district court. There are times where we're going straight to the circuit court.
Yes.
In these cases, or if you're dealing with the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, if you get through some of the unionization issues that you're dealing with a company, or there's some labor issues, you don't go to the district court where you're at. You go straight to the circuit court. There are some times where you kind of skip a step and you get straight to a more definitive source.
Generally, this is when you're relying upon the facts that were established by the agency, and you're saying, kind of, even with all of those facts, the agency has not done what they needed to do, and we're going to challenge it under a petition for review process.
Yes. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck on those. Those sound great, especially the emission standard one, because that one, if you guys could stop that, that would be.
Yeah, there are other agencies that can regulate automobile emissions as well. The big one is NHTSA. They can do fleet-wide averaging, but they're prohibited by statute from considering electric vehicles.
NHTSA, they can regulate it as well?
So there are other agencies that can do kind of fleet-wide auto emission rules for a variety of other reasons. EPA was established to deal with emissions.
Yes.
Where some of the other agencies are like fuel efficiency is what they're designed to accomplish. And so they can accomplish certain fuel efficiencies by requiring a certain average. The problem for that agency is that there's an explicit prohibition that they can only consider fuel vehicles in making that calculation. They cannot consider alternative energy sources when making the averaging.
Okay. Oh. And I guess I'm just surprised with NHTSA because it's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, not where in safety does the emissions fall? But I guess that's another one I guess they get to have. But I didn't realize they could do that. But that's that would be good if you could restrict it to just combustion powered vehicles.
For the last decade or so, they have been issuing joint rules with EPA.
Oh, okay.
And so that they would both kind of rely on each other's powers, which is one of the reasons why we couldn't challenge this in the past, because EPA wasn't doing it by themselves. And NHTSA had explicit authority to issue fleet-wide auto emission rules. But now that under the Biden administration, they want to encourage more electric vehicles, EPA has decided to go do its own thing without NHTSA. NHTSA's gone to do its own thing. Basically, EPA handles the electric vehicles, and then NHTSA goes, well, we can't consider electric vehicles, but we can consider what EPA is doing and kind of follow them.
No, that's super. No, that's interesting. I guess I'm going to have to look into what NHTSA does, because primarily in my practice, when I deal with NHTSA, it's just the OVI testing standards that they put out there, and I troll police officers with them on trial. So,
this is the corporate average fuel economy standards that are issued by NHTSA. This is the CAFE standards.
Yes, CAFE standards. Yes. Well, actually, you know what? I didn't realize they did those. I knew about CAFE, but I guess I never thought who actually enforces those. But okay, I learned something new today, chat. Let's see here. They should have to consider the fuel of the power plant. Ask if that fuel is approved to be used for vehicles on the road of America.
And so currently, under the EPA regulations, electric vehicles are considered to have zero emissions.
Yeah.
Even if the power plant that's used to power that vehicle is using coal to make that power.
Or if it's in the process of making that car. And I've shown before when people, the cobalt mining, the lithium mining, the factories.
Even beyond just considering zero, despite the emissions in the creation process and the emissions for the electricity that it runs on, they actually add a multiplier as well, so that each zero electric vehicle counts for like 3 vehicles.
Oh, so you can really so there's it's not just a 1-for-1, it's a 3-for-1 ratio. Okay,
yeah, they very much juice it in favor of electric vehicles.
Yes, no, that is a lot of incentive then for them to start knocking those out. Although, can companies like buy and sell their credits if they're making
That's
things?
another thing. So there's an averaging banking trading system.
Okay, so you can, yes.
Yes. However, none of that is in the statute. This is all EPA created, and it's part of our challenge to say the EPA doesn't have the authority to do this.
Oh, that's almost commodities trading, really, at that point.
Yes, it is. And, if the statute said that, well, that's up to Congress to do. But there is absolutely not one word about that in any part of the statute.
Because I was just thinking, like, Tesla can make a ton of money. Here,
Tesla does make a lot of money by selling emission credits.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that was a credit. I'm glad I asked that question, because that makes... Government really, I keep thinking government's a racket, and you find out more and more how much of a racket it really is at the end of the day. It never stops, I guess. I'm assuming you're that way too. You're like, wait, they do that too?
Yeah.
Every day it's a new thing.
I had no idea about it until I got involved and saw what was going on myself. So, but yeah, that is something we're challenging. We've been waiting for almost a year now for the DC Circuit to come up, give us a decision, probably rule against us, and then we'll see if the Supreme Court's interested.
Yeah, Matt B., what we're talking about is like cap and trade, but it's within an industry standard issue. So Tesla can sell all those credits because all it does is make electric cars. So, hey, we made 1 million electric cars this year. You want the 300,000... I can sell these off to Ford or GM, and they could say, "Hey, look, we pay the indulgence, so we don't actually have to pay to build the cars and pay to build the infrastructure."
Yeah, and the other aspect of it is the banking. So there's some years they might sell a whole bunch of electric vehicles and they'll bank those for future years where they may not sell as much.
No, that really, wow. That's, well, I mean, you can carry taxes forward. I get that. You can carry losses, but yeah, that is brilliant. That is brilliant what they're doing. I don't like it, but I respect the way they're doing it. That's a scam.
They're claiming it's all a part of their enforcement discretion.
Oh, jeez. I mean,
the clothes washer and dishwasher issue.
Yes,
the government is claiming that it was a Scrivener's error, that Congress forgot to give them this authority, and therefore courts should interpret it to give them this authority.
Oh, they're saying it's a Scrivener's error that something was completely omitted.
Yes.
Can you read the statute? Without that part, does the statute still make sense as far as reading it?
As far as I do, because Congress established a standard for dishwashers and clothes washers, and we don't dispute that Congress established a standard. We dispute that Department of Energy can amend that standard.
Yes, I mean, at this point, you've got Cargill too. You can't just amend the language in a statute at this point, although I don't know if you guys filed that pre-Cargill, but yeah, that's a perfect example of the ATF can't just change things. I can't imagine the EPA.
We're very early in this litigation.
Okay.
We filed our complaint. We've sent it in. We've served the government. We are currently waiting for their answer. It should be in August where they will give us an answer.
Okay. I just think a good supplemental response would be like you literally just had Cargill saying you can't do that. You cannot amend a statute on agency action alone, and then you don't even have to get into. That's
claiming that because of the Scrivener's error, if you properly interpret the statute as a whole in context, that it really gives them this authority because of Congress forgetting to do this.
I mean,
that's what the government's claiming. I'm happy to go into court with a Fifth Circuit decision saying basically we win.
Yeah. No, I think that's funny because normally, I mean, when I was in law school and one of my professors, he was a retired judge, he said, when you're putting something together, make sure it passes the straight face test, that you can make this argument with a straight face. If you can do that, it's probably okay to make, even if it's a bit outlandish. I don't know if I can make that. That doesn't pass a straight face test to me.
Well, when we get the answer from the government,
But
we will see what their how they try to put a straight face on.
the government never gets in trouble for making arguments like that, so it doesn't matter. It's just people like you and me who get in trouble for making ridiculous arguments. Rick Nickade is saying, has anybody asked Congress about the error? Well, Congress doesn't care. They passed their law. They're not going to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was an error.
Yeah.
Really. There was a whole provision. So the Senate wrote the bill originally, and they created this whole provision that's talked specifically about this issue. There was advocacy by multiple organizations asking for the agency to be given this power. The Senate wrote it into the bill. It went over to the House. The House yanked it out of the bill, and then it went back to the Senate, and the Senate agreed with the House. So I don't think, to me, this wasn't a scrivener's error. This was a choice by Congress.
So there's a lot of legislative record behind it too. The action.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That makes it even. Well, oh, there you go. I guess chat. See, you guys are getting. Yeah. See, Congress is like, what error? We said what we said, and that's what I assume you would ask. And even today, if it had to be fixed, I'm sure Congress will get right on that at some point.
If Congress wants to change the statute, we'll follow whatever Congress wants to do there. We're not arguing they don't have the authority to do this if they want to.
Yes. Sorry, here come. Rachel K says I should go back and listen to this bill. Why is it relevant? What is the government trying to stop? Well, the government's regulating energy usage and like having water efficient dishwashers and washing machines, right?
Yes. There's a history of this. During the Trump administration, I had personally proposed an alternative regulatory scheme for dishwashers, allowing faster dishwashers that can operate in under an hour. The current dishwashers take about 2.5 hours on average.
Yeah, they do.
They have basically doubled in the amount of time they take to clean dishes over the last 30 years because of these federal water and energy limits. And so I proposed these faster dishwasher regulations. The Trump administration said that's a great idea. They adopted them. They then expanded that for clothes washers. The Biden administration came in and repealed all of those starting on day one of the Biden administration. Those were then, the repeal of those rules were then challenged by a dozen states in the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit rejected the repeal of those rules. And in that decision, they said DOE doesn't even have the authority to issue any water efficiency rules on this topic. They didn't actually decide it on that issue. They decided it because a variety of other arbitrary capricious grounds that they failed to consider in repealing it.
Okay. And Rachel, when you've ever heard of high efficiency, dishwashers, high efficiency washing machines, that's where you hear about that. They're efficient with their water usage. And the one we probably all know about, especially if you're older, is the toilets. Toilets have undergone massive limits on how much water they can use. There's the low flow toilets now, and then, figuring out how to supercharge the flow so it works better. It's something. So this is not a new area of topic. This energy usage, water usage is something the government's actually been doing for quite a while.
Yeah,
I remember
that one went through Congress. Congress approved the low flow toilets.
Yes, they did. And I remember that was a thing about trying, like, people still had the high flow toilets, like in warehouses, and you had to go get them, and you had to.
Yes. I'm not sure I agree with some of those things, but it's up to Congress, and hopefully Congress will go the other way someday.
Yeah. No, I agree. Congress has made the rule, but at least they're making the rule, and it's not somebody throwing out a rule on the internet saying, "Oh yeah, you have a rule here. Here's your comment time," and we're not going to listen to it. So, have a nice day. And then Dry Bulk says the dishwasher in my work does one load of 2 minutes. Well, yes, you have a commercial one, and the rules are very different for those.
No, commercial dishwashers, they use a lot more power, they use a lot more water, and they can do it. I know many that can do it in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we had those kind of dishwashers in houses these days.
Oh, I agree, because I've put the dishwasher on before. Usually you do it in the middle of the night, you wake up, everything's done. But one time I put it on during the day, and I'm sitting there, and I was doing other things in the house, and I'm like, wait, I started this like an hour ago. Why is it still going? The washing machine's done by now. And it took about 2 hours. And I was
we had actually commissioned a survey of people, and we found a substantial number of people hand wash their dishes because the dishwasher takes so long. And the hand washing of dishes uses a lot more energy and water than a dishwasher does.
Yes, it does.
So one of the things we complained about when they repealed the rule was they failed to consider that consumers will hand wash dishes more often, therefore might actually use more water and energy due to the rule than what they without the rule. And so that was one of the reasons the Fifth Circuit sent it back to DOE to reconsider.
And Joe Loy, and I know Joe is from the United Kingdom, and she's saying you guys don't have the concept of water metering. No, we do. We do have water meters. They're installed on houses. The meter reader comes by. It's just the machines they run off of less and less amounts of water, and they generate issues, especially with dishwashers. There's you see commercials here in America for dishwasher detergent that actually cleans, because as the washers are getting more and more efficient, they don't use the soap properly. So there's crap and grit all over everything that never actually washes off.
Yeah, there was actually one of the statements by the Department of Energy that we used in our litigation, where they acknowledged that due to these water and energy limits, manufacturers were taking a lot more time because they needed to take that more time to have the same cleaning performance that they had when they were using more water and energy.
Yes. And where are you? Oh, some areas now use smart meters that can be monitored remotely. Yes, some places do. Out west particularly, but I live in Ohio. There's, we're not running out of water anytime soon here. So we don't have that problem. And even in DC, you guys have the lovely Potomac River to drink out of. So yeah, we've been going for a little while here. I know you said you got to work on moving your car pretty quick. So,
actually here.
Yeah. You still have your 1955 toilet. Jeez. You could probably flush a roll of toilet paper down that thing. Do you have any other things you'd like to talk about? Or are there other cases out there that you might not be involved with, but that are out there that are going to be pretty big coming up?
Just filed an amicus brief at the Supreme Court earlier today. This is Consumer Research versus the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It's specifically about Humphrey's executor and the power for the president to fire the heads of these agencies. We argue that Humphrey's executor, properly interpreted, is limited to ministerial, legislative, and judicial offices. So the executive offices that exercise certain policy-making authority or enforcement authority, those have to be under the control of the president.
Okay. And guys, yes, Humphrey's executor is a case from 1935. It goes way back. And this is part of the... Actually, were these New Deal... Was this part of the New Deal court by then?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
About that time.
It was. Yeah, and it's it's all about whether or not the president can remove those, except for reasons that Congress provided. And the consumer protection, he is congressionally appointed, right?
They're presidentially appointed, Senate confirmed, but they have an exception in there that says they cannot be removed but for cause.
Okay.
And the challenge is that for cause removal restriction, is that constitutional or not?
Okay. And are you guys arguing that it is or it isn't?
We're arguing that it is unconstitutional, that the president has the authority to fire these government officials, and we're asking the court to take this case to consider that.
Well, that would actually be, I think, probably applicable at some point to depending on how this is worded out, if it gets decided, the issues we were talking about earlier with special counsel Smith in Jack Smith's case, what present, I have a feeling they'll probably tailor it a lot more, but maybe it'll be involved in that too.
There is no statutory authority for any office of the special counsel.
Yes.
It's canon found. And so there's no congressional limitation on the presidential removal authority.
Well, I was thinking, I guess I was just trying to think, would there be any, I wondered if they would say, well, just like a special counsel, the president could do whatever he wants. There's no removal. I was trying to think ahead if there was a way that would work, but I think you're right. That actually doesn't make any sense there. So,
but there are lots of agencies out there. We argue even the FTC, which was the subject of Humphrey's executor, does not fall within the Humphrey's executor exception.
And guys, the FTC is the Federal Trade Commission.
Yes.
And Alec News saying, did the SEC sign off on new market and selling credits? I'm not. Do you know what that's about? Because I'm not sure.
We're talking about these auto credits that are being sold.
Oh, okay.
I don't think the SEC considers them securities.
I'll have to look into that because I didn't know if what they were going to do with those. But yeah. So Devin, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. And once again, congratulations on your victory, which I know is a lot more than just the results for the hobby distillers, but it actually is, I think, a pretty significant blow. I wouldn't say just necessarily to the regulatory state, but just the federal reach at this point, and whether or not Congress is actually exercising its power properly.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that this will go up to the Supreme Court one day and we'll get a decision on the limits of Congress's power in this area.
And because this is, guys, and we talked about when you read it, even the court admits that this Congress's power to tax and its power to regulate is very, very broad, and for the longest time has been widely upheld. So
it is very broad, but not unlimited.
Yes, it's not unlimited, and the way all these cases go, it just needs the court wants to say nope, and just a little bit of pushback. Just a little bit of pushback changes a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, Devin, thank you for your time. We appreciate you being here, and hope to hear from you in the future about you guys going and winning at the Fifth Circuit and taking it all the way to the Supreme Court.
I hope so too.
All right, guys. Devin Watkins, thank you again, Devin.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Take care. Yeah, he had he had to get ready. He had to move his car because he's out in DC. You got to worry about the meters. So when you guys have some actually questions here, we're gonna have to look into some of that stuff because I had mentioned to him before we started, but we got to look into the issues with the washing machines there because I think that is actually very interesting how they're gonna do it. It's firm handshakes for Devin. Jeez, you guys. Hope I didn't sound like too much of an idiot because this is an area of law. I don't do a ton of that stuff, so. I hope he enjoyed his time here and hopefully answering some of your questions. And guys, thank you for being here. It's only 6:45. So I sounded very professional. Well, thank you. I try. And Benjamin saying, thank you, Devin. We appreciate you. Yes, thank you. And yeah, guys, it's people like that. And if you heard him said he's at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, he was at the Cato Institute, and then he said at the beginning he was with the Institute for Justice, IJ. I talked about them multiple times. They're the people leading those charges against qualified immunity. It's people like Devin who are out there doing this. I'm going to call it lawfare, fine, but leading the legal charge against the government. The Competitive Enterprise Institute, it is about ensuring small business, the ability of government staying out of this, allowing the free market to work. And it is people like Devin who are making that happen. And they're challenging, through interesting topics like, can you distill alcohol in a still in your attached garage? The legality of that law, starting to attacking Congress's ability to tax and spend, its ability to regulate, and the Commerce Clause. So yes, these guys are giving the government the finger. They are. And it's guys like Devin that are doing it. They are doing it on that, they're out there dropping those hits like that. He's doing a great job, and it's people like him that make the world go round. Been a member some months. Vodka Blood, thank you for support. Saying you're a great interview. You're a great interviewer. I try to be. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. At times I get worried I'm leaving the guests to hang when I'm doing this too much. SB Seller says the Secret Service spokesperson agreed with Chat Sean. Your sniper team in the video isn't the one that fired. Oh no. We mentioned that when we had Joe Dolio on. It was a secondary sniper team that was farther out, about 400 some odd yards away, who was able to get the shot in. Going back to the Trump assassination attempt. That's what says it's so odd seeing practicing attorneys. Well, we can try. The government be like, you want a clothesline instead of a dryer? Here we come. Yes. But yeah, no, I was taking some notes here, guys. There's some shit I need to look into. And yeah, I knew about CAFE standards, but I didn't know NHTSA did those. I thought the EPA did CAFE. Learning that, but also learning that there's the issue with the EPA and NHTSA working together. And I was just saying, I was like, I guess you could probably sell those electric credit cards if you're Tesla, sell those credits because you made them out of thin air. And he's like, actually, they do that. I'm like, wow. I was just speculating. I'm like, well, that's a way for the people to make money. And yeah, apparently Tesla makes a shitload of money doing that way. Kimball says, does he work for free? No, he works for the Competitive Enterprise Institute. They hire him. He works for them. He does work. He does cases. They take on clients. So it's just like any other think tank, or I know Matt's favorite friends, the Firearms Policy Coalition. They take on clients and then they represent those clients. Those clients may pay for the representation. There may be funding available for those clients. However it works. But Devin worked with the Distillers Association, and those guys ponied up cash and they got involved. But CEI guys, Competitive Enterprise Institute, they do, they have, if you guys have never been here before, the about for them, it's very interesting. You guys can, it talks about supporting business. It's about having competitive enterprise. It's all about the government overreaching and restraining things. Things have to make sense, and they have to support business. If you don't support business, you kill the United States. You destroy everything. And if you guys would like to support them, just like you could support the Cato Institute or the Institute for Justice, you could support them. You can donate to them. You can donate to them. They're a 501c3 tax exempt organization. You can send money to them directly as a check to their philanthropy department. You can do a credit card. You can wire transfer, send a stock gift. You can do, and this is how it should be if they're going to be a libertarian group. It's got to be through Bitcoin. You can do a Bitcoin. You can give them a little slice of the action there. You guys are able to support them if you want to, and I think that's something you should think about. Can you swear now? Yes. Build all the towers you want. Oh, Matt B says they were using the Mark 13 Mod 7 300 Winchester mags. Oof. There you go. But I had heard the other team had an SR-25 and they dropped them. So give them Clyde coin. Oh, no, I would not do that to them. How about Bitcoin? You can pay with Bitcoin. You can pay with Bitcoin. What is Devin's Kiwi account? Devin does not have a Kiwi account, guys, but if you wish to follow Devin online, on Twitter. He does have an account. Let me bring it up here real quick. Devin has his own account. You guys can follow him here at Liberty Devin. He's working at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, followed by a lot of people. Other people I follow as well, including like Patrick Giacomo. He works at the Institute of Justice, the Institute for Justice. He's a guy I follow. There's other people I follow that are really good here. You know, you can follow Ilya Shapiro, not related to Ben Shapiro. Derek DeBus, he's actually a really good one to follow too if you guys follow him online. Those are some really good attorney accounts to follow that are really doing good, wholesome work out there. So, what's this?
He should have died.
What was your thoughts about the assassination attempt?
They missed.
Do you
He should have died. He's not good for this country, and he never will be.
Yeah, fuck him. Anyway, I thought that'd be something interesting. So, but anyways, Devin's account, guys, like I said, is at Liberty Devin. If you guys want to follow him, like I said, he does a lot. He does a lot of good stuff. I thoroughly enjoy it. Very good account. A lot of good information there. Obviously, you know, he's going to be tooting his own horn. I don't blame him. But he does, you know, and this is actually where I found from Oren Kerr. He is, he's at Berkeley Law Schools. He's a law professor there. It's also known as Bolt Hall. If you guys don't, Berkeley is in right across the bay from San Francisco in the hills. He's pointing out that he had a big issue with this in the injunctive relief, but Devin immediately says, you know, it's true that success on the merits doesn't automatically mean you get an injunction, but I think this court is wrong in that when individual constitutional rights are violated, the harms are almost always irreparable. There's no adequate remedy and no assertion of one. And he's right. Other than money, there's no other way to stop the government. So you have to do something. And, you know, he's, yeah, he's got quite a bit here. The people he follows, things he talks about. So, yeah, like I said, give him a look if you guys are interested. He said EPA, but then NHTSA adopted him. Yeah, well, the EPA and NHTSA work together. I was googling that. You were looking at Oren Kerr. Yeah, he gets law territory at times though. So, I didn't see that part about him and Nick, but I'm sure, I don't know, maybe better. I don't know. You reach out to Nick for an interview? I'm sure. I mean, you reach out if you know people are out there covering things you've done, things you've talked about. Sure, you're going to cover it and reach out to people. I don't think Devin looked at this guy and said, this is a constitutional scholar. But as a guy who covered his case and really went through it and broke it down and understood it, and yeah, it was very good. The replies tab is how you get to know someone. Sure, you can get to know them, but you can see the things they're talking about. And it covers after everything. People, you gave me your opinion already. He looks different in his picture. He looks better than me in my picture on my website. I need to get a new headshot, by the way. Need to work on that. Devin is not anonymous. Anonymous is a little left for Devin. It would not be him. Courting was streaming with Barnes earlier. I don't know. Good for him. I think Jeremy could do better finding other attorneys, but hey, what do I know? Saying Watkins a link to Nick's thread. No, I'm not doing that. I'm surprised that Jeremy went back. Did Jeremy went back on Timcast? Ooh, I didn't know that. When did he go? Because I don't watch Timcast, so. Yes, all the Rumble crew, the Friday Night Tights guys are at the DNC. Yeah, how about them super chats? Does this guy write smut books like Ghazni? No, I don't think so. And guys, like I said, I hope Hope Steve is doing well out there, and I hope he's weathering the storm of getting caught up in this bullshit political web. I mean, really, that's the issue. They don't really give a shit about Steve. He is the vehicle for whatever political issue exists out there, but that's that's the worst part about it. Oh, Danielle says he did it at the RNC. Okay. So it was just like last night or the night before. Okay. So I'm like, I haven't heard about it in the meantime. And normally I hear about that stuff. Well, it makes sense. Jeremy's at the RNC. He lives in like Milwaukee or is down the road from it. It'd be like me going to Cleveland in 2016 because I'm like right there. It's like, go there and call Cenk Uygur a faggot. Also, by the way, guys, a funny thing was when Cenk and Piers were doing Piers was talking to Cenk Uygur and Alex Stein. As much as I don't know, I'm kind of warming up to Alex Stein. It's just like I said, sometimes it seems like he's weird. He just like sticks his face in front of the camera and bombs the live shot. That was so damn funny. Yes. FNT guys is Friday Night Tights. That's Gary from Nerdrotic and all them. Johan, so yeah, Ralph Red's like tax free, bish. Tax free. Seller says that article didn't look at his actual work at all. Well, if you scroll around through there, you can actually the article that CEI did. It's got a bunch of the filings at the bottom. Jim says no, he was on with Luke Radowski. Oh, so he couldn't even get on Timcast. He was stuck on with Luke. We are change. God, he's almost as bad as Tim is at times, it seems. You guys were wondering what's under Tim's hat? There are pictures of him being dehatted. No Adam, no peace. Yes, Alex Stein got thrown out for that, but that was totally worth it. Sean wants Alex to notice his juicy booty. Well, yeah, I don't know. I want him to notice my juicy booty and have me on. I'll take the views, man. Tim showed up to the White House with his beanie on. Well, I would too. For Tim, that's part of his uniform. That's part of his, like, how you notice him. That's his, like, thing. But also, because he's fucking bald underneath, I get why he's wearing a hat. We should do a stream on tips and overseas income, lol. Trump said I don't have to pay. The Supreme Court said, yeah, well, Trump is going to try to push no tax on tips, which I think that'd be awesome. And then, because the way it'll work from now on, it's like, I'll pay my guy $50 to roof the house, and then I'll give him a $10,000 tip because I thought he did such a good job. That's what's going to happen, everything, and that'll be fucking awesome. People will pay like $20 for a service and like a $7,000 tip. Like you can't, yeah. Tim is super bald. Oh, Aaron, fine. Aaron's like, show me Tim Pool bald. Tim Pool without a hat on. Where is it? Here's a good one. Here we go. Here's Tim Pool without a hat on. Let's see here. This is old, but it still gets the point across. That's Tim Pool without a hat on. He's bald. He got male pattern baldness early. Tim caught all the male pattern baldness I didn't get. My family didn't have any male pattern baldness running around, and he caught it all. Yes. Deheading sounds very Jewish. Tim Pool has his own farms thread. Yes, he does. I'm angling to get on Fish Tank. No, but I would love to get a hold of the contract that everybody in Fish Tank has to sign. Like the contracts you get for being on there. Like I'd love to review it. Not even like Here's the thing. I think Fish Tank is hilarious, and I've only been catching bits and pieces this season, but I would love to go through the contract that Sam Hyde put together. And it's mainly because Sam is a very professional dude when it comes to his business work. Like, that's what I've been told. Like, he's really good at being a businessman. So I'd love to see what they put together. Tim will say Teddy Feezer without the beanie. Yeah. Whereas Teddy Feezer look like Tim. Kimbo says, I'm at 22.2 subs. Today will be a good day. Yes. And we're going to have to work on it, guys. Probably at the end of summer, we'll work on the 20K special. It's a number I never thought I'd get to. That's the crazy thing. I mean, we were at 15 for like a whole year. And now I'm at 20. And it's like almost halfway to 20. Like, almost like part of the way to 25K. Like, super fucking crazy, chat. It's super crazy. EDW gifted 10 memberships. Thank you, EDW. And then EDW for $5 is saying, clearing out the grays for Devin. Well, I appreciate you guys making this a green-friendly home for him. Stephen Cooper says the EPA is also why vehicles have gotten to the size they are now. Yep, it's very true. And Stephen Cooper says the Hilux is banned because of the goddamn chicken tax. Yes, there's a lot of things preventing us from getting the Hiluxes. Squizgar says, I just want my Dodge Hemi V8s back. Jeez. Oh. Stephen Cooper says high efficiency equals trash. Yes. Alex Blackfoot says, you're hiding the inefficient dishwashers under the floorboards, aren't you? They're right here, aren't they, sir? Mr. Sean. You're hiding them, the enemies of the state. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to switch back into French and you'll go along with me. And I will get up and I will point to where they are. And you'll nod your head. I think that's how he did it. Fair Froze, it says, still sending you the $5 by YouTube being fags. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a shame, says, happy Prime Day to those who celebrate. Yes, guys, today is Prime Day, and I'm not going to make a joke that, of course, the women are like, it's Prime Day. I'm sure 2.0 is like, it's Prime Day. Although she had to work all day, so not this year. There was one year, I forgot. I think it was the first year I met her. The first, like, the Prime Day in 2020. But that's also, we were all stuck at home. She's like, it's Prime Day. Unforced Ego for $20. Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the tips, Sean. In case you didn't know, tips are tax-free. It's the law, bish. Tax-free. Every dollar, tax-free. Thank you. The government does not see this as tax-free, though, sadly. For the 70% I keep after YouTube takes their cut. But thank you anyways. I appreciate it. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I got male pattern oldness. Yeah, that's all right. My grandpa got gray pretty early. Although he flew a fucking death trap of an airplane in the Navy, so maybe that did it for him. I have more hair on my arms than Tim has on his body. Oh. It's got to be an insane contract, 30 pages long. Oh, I can only imagine. It's probably really cool. Like, I would love to look at it just to see what they're doing, what it's all about. I just think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that would be a lot of fun. Season 2.5 is pretty good. Yeah, and I think now they're doing Out in the Woods and stuff. I think that's so, guys. They have done Fish Tank and they're out in the woods doing Fish Tank now, which I think is fucking hilarious. Oh, I shot the camera. I think it's really funny. And also now you could buy the fish. You could buy the season 2 house. It's up for sale. Samuel Heidenstein is very good at contracts. Oy vey. The 20K special is going to turn in the Nick 24-hour stream, except I'll do it. I'll do it. We got to get to the 50K. It's when it starts snowballing. It feels like it's already started to snowball, chat. 24-hour stream when, guys, I am not be able to stay up for 24 hours. I'll lay on the floor here and you can listen to me go like this. Like you just let me snore for hours on end, I guess. Yes, Sam Hyde was hilarious on administrative results. $24-hour stream, like, we can plan the wedding. No, we wouldn't do that. Hi, Angela. The Mercedes diesels too. Every artist I've ever met worships them. Yes. The Mercedes diesel, Mercedes turbo diesel. Yeah, that's why you see like taxis in the Middle East. They're Mercedes diesels. They run for fucking ever. Is Rumble/Locals still a better way to tip? I mean, it all depends what you're doing. Yeah, Locals takes less of a cut. Rumble takes less of a cut. But Rumble is like fucking a pain in the ass to get paid out of. At least I have had trouble doing it, so I don't know if it's ultimately that bad. But no, there's like I said, I have stuff down below. Venmo, all those the ways of doing it. There's a Samsung 4 terabyte Generation 4 solid state for $250. Jeez. Kimbo saying, running my heat debate and list his comment section. What are my thoughts on the clip channels? I mean, ultimately, like the real clip channels out there, like Destiny, he's got clip channels like Last Night on Destiny and all these other ones that are out there. Those guys set those clip channels up to fucking make bank because those clips make shitloads of views too. Like the CPM on those clip channels is fucking epic. For people like Alyssa, though, I mean, I don't see why she can't do them. I don't mind them. I mean, I've seen there's some times where it's like, ha, Sean did something funny. And certainly, that's just the nature of the internet. If I started doing something really shitty or bad, people would start documenting that too. I guess it sucks though, because like people like Alyssa now are gonna have to like start doing things like putting in comments or stuff like that, and that's really hard to do. But I think it's retarded. YouTube's doing what they're doing. But remember, YouTube is looking for every way not to pay out money. Remember, guys, it wants to save all that advertiser money for itself. That's the big thing here. That's what every adpocalypse ultimately comes down to. YouTube isn't worried about its advertisers because notice, they don't tell people to change. YouTube keeps a bigger piece of the pie every time. YouTube takes more of it and more of it and more of it, and they keep it. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. That's what this is all about. Das Boot says it will be back in house for season 3. Yeah. Yep. And the season 2 house already sold. Jeez, I can't believe it sold already. Some YouTubers have an Amazon wish list. I know, I thought about putting one together. Kick only takes 5%? I'll try Kick again, but we had nobody ever on there. Nobody ever did Kick, so I quit doing it, and I wasn't going to... Like, StreamYard, if you want to stream in all the different things, like you pay $25 a month, you have access to, like, streaming the 3 things at once. If you pay $50 a month, you can stream to, like, 8 channels. So I can stream to, like, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all that all at once. But, like, nobody's really watching on a bunch of those. And I'm like, that's kind of a waste. Kind of waste of money, so. Have I said anything about Destiny getting kicked off Kick and demonetized? Fucking suffer, you commie faggot. There. I said something. But yeah, I think clip channels should be allowed to survive. It's just YouTube stealing money. My wish list can't cross state lines. Yes, but I need to set one up. you get me 50 subs on Kick, would you wear the conductor hat? Sure, I'll wear it again. And I'll put it on. Because I still got it right here. I mean, this one, right? Yeah, it's still here. It's still here. It's still around. It's still around, chat. Have you looked into super tips? Some YouTubers do that. I don't know what super tips are. So I've never heard of them. And the pins? Oh, where are I got the pins over there with it. I need to grab them. Can you do the whistle pull while wearing the hat? I'll make it so it does it. I'll make it so it does it. I'll have it here like in my side things to click on. Woo woo. I'll do that. Woo woo. Chugga 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 choo choo. Have I mentioned the YouTube campaign against gun tubers with advertisers? Yeah, I guess, that was the workaround for a while. You're just saying who the sponsors are, but now they're saying you can't talk about them. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's the new wave coming, and they'll slowly eke everybody out. Because that way they don't shove everyone off at once. But I think at some point YouTube's going to get burned. The problem is, like, Utreon's not that good. Full 30 died. I don't know. We'll see something at some point. Go somewhere. Oh. Yeah. I assume the Ricada court docs. Yes. God, those are crazy. I mean, God, those attorneys are asking for fucking everything. That's pie in the sky shit. I mean, given what's going on, what they know, like, those attorneys need to exercise some client control. Like, yeah, Nick and Kayla want everything to come back to normal, but they need to be sat down and told that ain't happening. Because, yeah, I read those. Like, we want everything in the alternative. It's like everybody wants everything in the alternative. Yes, it's new. It's retroactive, so old videos will get deleted, new videos will get deleted. Yep, and people are gonna have to go back through and like edit shit out. So, can you cannot talk about it? I mean, I'll talk about it. I mean, I'll talk about it tomorrow on Thursday night. But a stream about that stuff. So from what I know now, from actually reading the farms and being lectured about fucking actually reading, like read, Helen, read, water. Wamwa. These documents are available. I still don't know if I should be going over them. I think it looks bad form for my business, so I won't go over them. But you can read them. But we'll talk about them tomorrow. I just think some people are getting desperate, and it's just not working the way they think they thought it would. So. Let's see here. React to Aaron reading them. I thought about that. Let's take a look into that. I'll take a look into that. How come Nick says he can't talk about his case and then talks about his case every time he's in front of the camera? Because he's a fucking idiot. Because he's an idiot. He's getting, like, he's almost baiting himself into talking. It's like, no, just stop. So, I mean, I really don't know how to say it. I don't want to go read an 1,100 page thread. I know, but we'll cover them tomorrow. Guys. They're interesting. They're not earth shattering, but they are interesting. Oh. Can't get the yawn out. I can't get the yawn out, chat. I can't get the yawn out. I'm like, I can't get it out. I can't do anything there. Steel Toe's boring. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's 5,500 pages now. Yes. Am I dreaming? Are we a figment of imagination? No. So, Matt Gaetz is going to do a speech right now. Ooh, boy. Matt Gaetz, everybody. Oh, shit, chat. Sorry, I just think he's a tool. So, I just can't fucking stand the guy. Fucking annoying. Just you want to take something and you just want to go up to him and just like, right to his face. He's talking shit to McCarthy, fine, but he's still a tool. So, yeah, with that all being said, guys, I will see you guys around. I'm thinking about trying to figure out what we're going to do tonight. But it's only 7:30. Whole night ahead of us. I think there's got to be something to do. Maybe we'll do locals. I'm not sure yet. No, guys, I have a limited schedule tomorrow. Should be quick. And then Friday, I've got something kind of important that I don't know. Maybe you'll find out about. Maybe you won't, and we'll go from there. Do the Monday local stream today. Yeah, I thought about that. We'll see. Other than that, guys, yeah. Until next time. Just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. I know I should be going like that way because it's like I don't really do it this way, except now I'm doing it this way. So they're like, I'll see you guys a little bit later. Take care, everybody. Bye. No, we are not going all night, chat.